Hi, my name is jcondie, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist and a licensed professional clinical counselor here in Orange County. And I have been asked to share my expertise from a mental health perspective about self care. This is my second of three videos that the OC Youth Chamber of Commerce will be featuring this week for their self care virtual program. Today's video, I will be suggesting some realistic self-care activities that you can do not only during this pandemic, but also when life returns back to normal. If you had missed my first video, I would highly suggest that you watch it to learn more about the ultimate form of self-care, which is practicing self-compassion. Just as a little recap, self-compassion is the mental and emotional foundation that is needed in order for you to be able to practice other self-care activities because for many people, it is hard trying new things due to irrational fears, doubts, and or insecurities, and this can create a mental block that stops you from even trying out new or different self-care activities. But if you are able to practice self compassion, that could be the key in helping you overcome these barriers. So, again, if you missed that first video, then please make sure to watch that when you get the chance. So, I want to first start off by saying self care activities can vary from person to person, and it is not a one size fits all kind of deal. You really have to be open to trying different things until you learn what works for you. It is also important to note that self care can be broken up to six categories. There's the physical, psychological, emotional, spiritual, personal, and professional needs. And you may not need to do self care activities in all six categories all of the time. In order for you to know which self care activities to do, it requires some level of insight and attunement to your own personal needs in that very moment. So, what I'm trying to say in all of this is that the suggestions that I will be going over are things you should really take with a grain of salt. Keep in mind that you can take what I say and tweak it to make it more realistic and doable to your personal preferences and needs. I'm going to go over my top three self care strategies that I personally do that fall under the psychological, personal, and emotional categories. Also, the self care activities that I'll be going over are things that don't really require you to spend any money and are things that you can practice as frequently as you want or need. So, one self care activity that I do, and that has especially come in handy these past several weeks, is giving myself a very general schedule that includes three realistic and attainable goals that I can do every day. Now, since this is something that I have been doing for a while, I don't always necessarily write down my schedule or goals anymore. However, I did create one to kind of give you guys a visual of what my schedule and goals look like. And if this is something you are planning to do or would like to start doing, I would suggest that you do write your own schedule down and put it somewhere you can see it every day in order to help motivate you and remind you to follow it, at least until you get familiar with it. Now, the key to creating a schedule that is actually helpful is to make sure that it is attainable and realistic. I also like to keep it as vague as possible. And the reason why I do that is one, it's easier to remember, and two, because it sets me up for success, because it opens up my options in regards to the ways I can adhere to the schedule. Meaning, if I have on my schedule something as vague as do something productive, I can probably identify 3 to 5 things that I can do, versus if I say, finish reading a book. That's pretty specific and leaves no other option than to either read the book or not. And if you aren't able to finish the book, then it might actually make you feel worse about yourself. I believe being too specific can actually increase your anxiety and or disappointment if for some reason you're not able to do exactly what you had planned. Your schedule should be this broad idea of what you would like to do. And every day you get to decide and identify how you're able to do that, which is why I wrote the exact same thing every day for my schedule. Not because I do the exact same thing per se, but to just remind myself that this is, in essence, what really matters to me at the end of the day. My task section comprises of things that I need to get done. Some of those things might have deadlines like paying a bill, but other things may not have a specific deadline like reviewing something. And it simply serves as a visual reminder of things that I can do that can help towards my schedule of being productive as I'm able to kind of check them off my list. Basically, this schedule is my bare minimums of things that I already do, and it helps remind me on days when I'm feeling like, oh man, I did nothing, that I actually did do more than I'm giving myself credit for. Getting myself and my kids ready and fed, being productive by going to work or completing some of my tasks off my list, and doing that nighttime routine with myself and my kids, those are all things that are worth acknowledging and giving myself credit for. I also want to highlight the just me section, which is a non negotiable of something I do just for me. No matter what, I make sure I do this every day, which is do nothing for, 20 minutes. I think this is an important thing to add to your schedule, and it should be something that is very simple and easy and that you enjoy. Some other examples that I've heard people do is like drinking a cup of coffee or doing their skincare routine, having 5 minutes completely by themselves, listening to one of their favorite songs. The key is having it meaningful to you and to allow yourself to do it. Make it a priority, just like brushing your teeth. And lastly, the goals I identify are things that make me feel better about myself. They're realistic, they're attainable, and they're vague, just like my schedule. I mean, other than making my bed, which is not vague, but it makes me feel good, but it's also simple to do. But the other two goals are being active can mean going to the gym, or it can mean having my puppy chase me around. Being present can happen when I'm conversing with a colleague or when I ask my kiddos how their day was. Or it's when I just watch my husband and kids play together. In essence, your schedule should help you feel better about yourself and serve as a reminder that you're doing a lot more than maybe you give yourself credit for. So, if you are interested in making yourself a schedule, I encourage you to be as vague as possible to make sure you set yourself up for success. Also, have it somewhere you can see it regularly. And if you're like me and like to check things off, make sure you do add a task section of things you want to get done that week. So, a little tip that I have learned and found very helpful is making sure that I sprinkle in some easy to do tasks on my list, like calling a friend. Because when I see that I'm checking things off my list, it motivates me to want to complete other tasks that might be slightly less appealing to do. The next self-care activity I do is words of affirmation to myself. I remind myself of my amazing qualities and accomplishments by reading them off to myself in front of the mirror. I usually do this when I'm brushing my teeth in the morning and at night before I go to bed because it reminds me to start and end my day with a positive perspective about myself. I admit, when I first heard of this, I thought it was strange and it felt really weird doing it the first several times. I realized later that I was so uncomfortable with it because thinking of myself in a positive way just never happened, which is kind of sad and something that I learned was a choice. And like most people, I was conditioned to only focus on things that were wrong with me and all the things that I still needed to get done. However, reminding myself how far I've come and that I carry qualities worth being proud of has really helped build up my confidence. I also learned that there's nothing wrong with being my own hype man, and as a result, I genuinely believe I am capable to take on whatever challenges and struggles come my way. So, all you would need for this self-care activity is a piece of paper, a pen and pencil, and maybe 5 to 15 minutes of time to reflect. If you're like me, when I first did this, it was kind of difficult to think of things to write down. But don't let that stop you. sit with it. I would also challenge you to try and think of things that are specific to your own personal experiences to kind of help make it much more meaningful and powerful. I mean, it's okay to use words like I'm strong. I have those types of statements too, but I also think it's meaningful to kind of identify actual experiences in my life that I have overcome or that I am proud of, because it makes it much more concrete, which is why it's much more meaningful and powerful. I have seen people use kind of post-its. I personally prefer to have it just on one sheet of paper, and I hang it next to my mirror. I have also gotten to the point where I don't even really need to read it. It has become a part of how I simply think about myself. This is an activity that really can help you practice that self compassion, which I've already explained earlier is the ultimate form of self care. So, the last self care strategy I practice is connecting with others. This is not something that I do every day because I am naturally more of an introvert, which I know comes as a shock to most people, but I oftentimes find social interaction very draining because social interactions are very surface level connections. However, connecting with others on a more meaningful level, now that is food to my soul. We all seek to feel seen and understood beyond just that surface interaction. But sadly, most of us do not engage in meaningful connections regularly. I have learned that if I want more meaningful connections, I oftentimes have to initiate it. I experience meaningful connections by seeing my own therapist regularly, connecting with certain friends and family members, and through my work when working with clients. I have learned to identify through the years the people that I'm able to connect with in a meaningful way. And when I say meaningful way, I mean we connect through shared experiences of not only happiness, but pain, sadness, fear, loneliness, embarrassment, and shame. I am able to be vulnerable with these people, and I know that I will be seen and not judged. It is rare to have many people you can connect with in this way. Some people might even say they have no one that they connect with in this way, or if they do, it happens rarely. I encourage you to be intentional about it and initiate these types of connections more often because you deserve it. Take a hard, honest look at the people in your life, and I encourage you to identify the people that you think you can connect with in a more meaningful way. All you need for this self care activity is some insight and a phone. Once you've identified someone that you trust to be vulnerable with, you would simply just pick up your phone and give them a call. And if you're wondering, well, how do I start a meaningful conversation? Like, what do I say? Just say this. So, I watched this therapist say something about having more meaningful connections and talking about things that matter to me with someone that I trust to like understand me and not judge me. And you know what? I thought of you. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being one of the best conversations you've ever had. I hope that you guys found these self care strategies helpful and that you are willing to try them out for yourself. But like I stated earlier in this video, it's important that you just take not only my suggestions, but really everyone's suggestions with a grain of salt. Don't feel the need to add extra pressure to do more. And if that's what you take away from it, then maybe it's not the right time to do anything. And that's okay. Doing nothing can be a form of self care too. You are the best person to know exactly what it is you need and don't need. Now, if you're unsure of what it is you think you need, then it might be a good time to consider reaching out to a professional for help, which is what I'll be talking about in my next video. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback about anything that I mentioned in this video, feel free to shoot me a message through IG or my email. Have a wonderful day. Stay healthy, remain calm, and be kind, especially to yourself.